And hello and welcome to another edition of 1640 Community Focus. We're speaking with a panel of incredible people today. And I want to welcome to our program today Rabbi Gadi Capella of Greenport, New York, Father Roy Trivedick, Montefort missionary priest from Our Lady of the United Islands Shrine, and in Manorville, New York, and Dr. Don Russo, retired educator from Mattituck. Hello, guys. Welcome to our program today.
Hello there. Hello. Shalom.
Shalom to you. Shalom Aleichem. It's very nice to have you on the program with us today. The goal of this interview is to educate people who have never heard of Project Genesis, which you guys are running, and it's to get people to help in the mission of peace, which is going to take place, and we'll find out all the details about that. I'd like each guy to give a short bio of yourselves at this time.
Well, hello, I'm Father Roy Trivedick, and I'm a Montfort missionary, the director of the Shrine, Our Lady of the Island, and I've been there for 14 years. And I was ordained in 1993. I'm a native Long Islander, and I've always been very interested, being that I grew up in Long Island, about the Jewish faith, with lots of friends growing up and all the rest, and then did a lot of encounters in the seminary, different programs I was involved in. So we would visit each other's seminaries, and so I got real familiar with the Reconstructionist movement and the Reform movement and the conservative movement at JTS in Manhattan. Rabbi?
Hi, I'm Rabbi Gadi Capella, and picking up from JTS, the Jewish Theological Seminary that I was ordained in 2008, and that was a result of already a few years of working with Project Genesis. I was born and raised in Israel and came here in 1995 and worked in the business world, but always was educated in Jewish studies. And then when I met Father Roy in 2005, we began teaching together the book of Genesis. And 2 years into it, I decided that this would be my vocation, and I quit my job and went into rabbinical school for 4 years, and then was hired for my own pulpit, and only then we finished the book of Genesis after 7 years, and now I've been with the congregation for almost 7 years. So it's been 13 years that Project Genesis has been bringing Jews and Christians together on the east end of Long Island.
Father Roy, how did you and Rabbi Gadi meet each other?
Well, we met at a holiday party, and right off we began to talk theology. He said he'd never met a priest before, and so I said, well, I had met lots of Jews. So we began a conversation and just began to really kind of educate each other on lots of amazing topics and details that we began to start a conversation. I began to preach about some of these insights, and folks at the Shrine began to say, well, where is he? Can we meet him? We want to see what he's got to say. So that started the idea of doing the classes on the book of Genesis. So we, of course, it's a book we all agree upon, so that we began to work with that text. I would like to introduce Dr. Russo here, too, and have his introduction.
Hello there. I'm Dr. Don Russo, and I was born in Brooklyn, raised and grew up on Long Island. Got my undergraduate degree in philosophy, and have an advanced degree in theology from the Gregorian University in Rome, and then got my PhD in religious education from NYU. I've taught high school, I've taught college, but I've been involved in ecumenical and faith education since 1968, and now I'm involved out here on the east end of Long Island in adult religious education.
Interesting. And Rabbi Gadi, how did Project Genesis evolve?
So it had two major phases. The first phase was the 7 years that I taught with Father Roy at the Shrine of Our Lady of the Island, the Book of Genesis. We simply started with verse 1, Genesis 1:1, and the first lecture was only on the first verse. So that's why it took 7 years, meeting monthly for an hour and a half. When I finally received my pulpit in Greenport, also on the East End, I thought that would be it, and that was it. But then our friend Dr. Donald Russo, who used to come to our lectures at the Shrine, I asked him to teach me the New Testament, because I went to a lecture of Amy Jill Levine, Dr. Amy Jill Levine, who is a professor at Vanderbilt University. She heads even though she's an Orthodox Jewish woman, she heads the New Testament studies at Vanderbilt University. And she came to lecture in New York, and she convinced me that Jews need to actually educate themselves with the New Testament, because she gave two main reasons. She said, first, it's Jewish history, and second, it's the best documented Jewish history from that period. So then I thought, I've educated, taught a Christian audience for 7 years now, and what about them educating me about the New Testament? So I approached Don Russo, and I asked him if he would teach me. We'd just study together. And we did it. We studied for maybe 3 sessions, and my, business head said, let's open it up. And of course, this is on radio, but Don is laughing, because we found a church that would host us. We opened up our studies, and they had to bring the last chair they had. We planned on 25 people, and 92 people showed up.
Wow.
Yeah, so that started the second phase of Project Genesis, where now Don teaches the New Testament, and then I comment with the Jewish sources on the New Testament, and then we are also recorded at this point, so we have the lectures online. So these were the 2 phases of Project Genesis.
Mm-hmm. And myself, as an Orthodox Jew, I found this very fascinating, especially from the historical point that you mentioned. So let's talk about this upcoming pilgrimage in February. What is this all about?
Well, I've been going to the Holy Land now for many years, since 1999, and
Father Roy.
Yeah, this is Father Roy here, and so I love taking people there, and been very inspired by a lot of books and research and stuff that's been coming out the last bunch of years about the Jewish roots of Christianity, and so I find that it's really helped my preaching and my teaching. And when I take people to the Holy Land, of course we're in contact there with the whole history of Israel and the faith of Israel. So it's been a great privilege to do these pilgrimages. At this stage of my life, I've actually spent probably 8.5 months in the Holy Land at this point, and so I have a great love for Israel and the whole situation. When I take people there, I say in one moment you will feel perhaps like heaven has come to earth, and you'll have these wonderful experiences. And then in 20 minutes later, you'll also have a very sad and difficult experience looking at the situation. So it's a real intense time at this point in human history where we are right now. So I enjoy taking people on pilgrimage. Now this one we're having in February, we really are, what the goal has been is have Jews and Christians go together. And so I think we have about 10 Jews and 20 Christians, I think, on this group, something like that. And then we even have a couple of couples who are Jewish and Christian, couples. So they're joining in, and I'm sure it's going to be a revelation for everyone.
Now, those that are listening that might not necessarily be able to go or can't afford to go, whatever it is, what can they do to help your cause?
Well, we have our website, project-genesis.com.org. It's .org, sorry, .org.
Right.
And so we do have a lot of pictures and videos that we put up over these years now. And then, of course, the teachings are on there as well. But people can help us, of course, to fundraise and to help. We have a lot of overhead, I guess, here for the technical pieces of all of this puzzle with the online stuff. So any contribution would be great. If somebody could assist us, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm going to elaborate a little bit. This is Rabbi Gadi.
Sure.
We also are going to have an interfaith peace proposal that we've comprised, and it was really inspired by my years of education at Yeshiva University. On top of it, the work with Project Genesis really somehow showed me that the idea of the spiritual journey is what I call it from Egypt to Rehoboth. Speaking Hebrew, you would understand it goes from narrow to wide. Egypt is narrow, Rehoboth is wide. Egypt is where the Jewish people was born, and Rehoboth is where the Jewish people is striving to go through the Midrash of Nachmanides, who said that the three wells of Isaac that he dug in after his father Abraham passed away, these are the three wells that represent the three temples in the Holy Land. And we're going with the idea that he moved away from the second to the third well, which means that we're saying, basically proposing, that instead of going with the Egypt model, where it has to be one against the other, or one on top of the other, we want to strive to a model of Rehoboth, that one is next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, as our prophets teach us. So for that, we're also trying to document the pilgrimage and the peace proposal, so we can be, mass-produced and showed in different venues. So we would like to fundraise for the recording and the filming and then the editing of the documentary. We're working with world names, producers and directors. So we need, a few $1,000s that would stretch a long way.
All right, so if you guys have any suggestions on the way people can try to find, like you started to talk about here, to find things that we agree on rather than differences, so we can all get together and learn from this experience.
Well, what I think, this is Don Russo. I'm going to kind of revert back to my own history. Having been involved in ecumenical and interfaith religious ed for 50 years, 2/3 of my life, it's always boiled down to, and the conversation always got more interesting and deeper when people did emphasize the things that they had in common. But I also think, since we're talking about peace ultimately, I think especially in today's world, we have to ask people to begin to reflect on how much they participate in an either-or world. And have this either-or mindset. We've got to go beyond winners and losers to understanding that there's always a third way. And I think what we're striving for here is to find that third way through the conversations that we're going to have amongst the three religions: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam.
Now, you got a couple of upcoming weekend events so people can get together and discuss this peace proposal. Could you mention those?
Yes. We have on the 19th, it's Saturday night at 7:30, our first event at the Conic Landing, which is also our regular home for the monthly lectures. So it would be in their social hall, and it will probably also be recorded as well. And the second event will be on the following day, Sunday, January the 20th at 4 o'clock at the Shrine of Our Lady of the Island.
That's in Manorville, New York.
Yeah, why don't we give out the addresses of those places, too, in case people listen want to write it down?
Yeah, it's the shrine is at 258 Eastport Manor Road in Manorville, New York. Its zip is 11949. All this will be on the website. You can check out all the details there at that project-genesis.org, and you can find out details there. We're also going to be hosting a Seder, a teaching Seder at a country club on April 16th, on a Tuesday. It actually is a Tuesday of Holy Week, that the rabbi and myself and Don will be hosting and giving commentary as we go through the Seder meal. So we do these kinds of teaching experiences here. If people wanted to invite us to come, we're happy to also maybe do some teaching in a different locale if we're invited, so people could be in touch with us. And we did another thing we've done for a couple of times now, something called Between the Lights. And it's between the lights of Hanukkah and Christmas, and giving a little teaching on the role of light in both religions, and the holidays, going into the holidays, and that there is a lot to celebrate together.
And this is Don Russo. To give you the address for Saturday night's program at Peconic Landing, it's in Greenport, New York, and it's 1500 Bricknock Road in Greenport. And that's the auditorium at Peconic Landing, and we'll begin the program at 7:30 on Saturday.
I'd like to have you guys back on to talk about the Seder. That's fascinating, the events that are coming up here.
The model Seder, this is Rabbi Gandhi Capella. The model Seder was actually the first thing we did together, and I was, an Orthodox Jew in New York, thinking I can't do anything ritualistically with Christians, and of course I had Christian friends, but I didn't think I would be able to do that. But I consulted with one of my rabbis, and he said I can actually do it, do a model Seder, a teaching Seder with Father Roy. And that really actually what started us off, because, and you'll appreciate it as an Orthodox Jew, I sat on one end of a long table, and everybody else sat on the sides, and then there was one person sitting against me at the other side of the long table. Originally, we didn't know how many people to plan for, and we said, let's plan for 25 people. And we bought the Haggadot. We used the Art Scroll translation, and exactly 25 people showed up. So that already was miracle number one. I thought, okay, maybe God is telling me that it's okay, and lightning will not strike me if I sit with Christians. And then the second thing that happened really convinced me, because there was no way that could happen just haphazardly. What happened was that man that sat across from me at the end of that long table got the part of the fourth son. The four children, the wise, the wicked, the simple, one who does not know how to ask. But the Art Scroll translation said the one that cannot ask. And this man across from the end of the table had laryngitis.
Oh, he had a laryngectomy.
That worked out perfectly, right?
and he was unable to speak. And he's the one person sitting across from me. And the idea, the answer to the fourth child in the Haggadah, in the book of the Seder, is what do you do? How do you respond to them? They're so far removed from their old tradition, they can't even ask. They don't even know the vocabulary. What do you have to do? You have to initiate the conversation for them, right? At petachlo. You have to open up for them. And really, this has been the goal of Project Genesis, because that's what I've been doing originally, of course, with the facilitation of Father Roy, who really had that vision, to open up to that child that is Christian but originally relates to the Jewish oral tradition and the written text, the Genesis, the Project Genesis, and still does not know how to ask to relate to the tradition of their forefathers and mothers. So this has been the goal, and that's how it really, that Seder became the cornerstone of what Project Genesis does. And we've done a few of them since, and they were very successful.
And I also want to add to that in terms of the goal. We're trying to get people to communicate with one another, and it's so important that I think we have to remember that you're not going to have peace in the world unless you have peace among the religions. And that's exactly what we're striving for, that you can have all the political wherewithal and all of the military might to say we want peace and we're going to achieve peace. You'll never achieve peace unless the religions are at peace with themselves.
Hallelujah.
I agree. I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedule. Let's give out that website one more time so people get in touch with you.
The website is www.project-genesis.org. Please give us with a wide open hand.
All right, Rabbi Gadi Capella, Father Roy, I want to pronounce your name correctly this time. Treverdick, okay, I got it. And Dr. Don Russo, all together. When you get back from Eretz Yisrael, from the Holy Land, why don't you call us back and we'll do an update on the radio?
That would be great.
Sounds great. Wonderful, wonderful. If you can announce that we'll have the third event in Jerusalem on February 11th at 7 o'clock at the Leonardo Plaza in Jerusalem, at the Yamin Moshe venue. And more information about it will come, but they can also view the information and the update on our website, www.project-genesis.org.
Okay, well, and we'll put that in as a public service announcement, let people keep hearing about this. I want to thank you guys again for coming on the radio with us on our Focus on the Community 1640 program here, and we hope to have you back again in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye now.